Now we're going to tell you what's happening in the news, of course, giving you some news updates. And so we did tell you that a major fire actually engulfed the medieval Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, and this is actually one of France's most famous landmarks. The 850-year-old Gothic building's spire and roof have collapsed, but the main structure, including the two bell towers, have been saved. Now firefighters are still working to contain this particular blaze, and they are still working on this fire apparently has refused to out, so to speak. So firefighters are still working to ensure that they bring this fire out, and so we're going to keep at this particular story and bring you the updates as they unfold. Remember, the cause of fire has not yet been established.
Oh yes, very interesting developments there. The pictures you're seeing right now are from that cathedral there. If you go to social media right now, it's the conversation everyone is having their say, and of course a couple of people complaining about how we have shunned what is happening in Zimbabwe, and everyone is concentrating on this story here, but because this one has gotten so much international attention, right. So quite explains. Let's not complain, let's just pray for the people around this area that it doesn't affect them.
Right, and I think the question is, why is it taking so long for the fire to be contained?
Yes.
I think these are things that information that will be coming out, of course, as we continue throughout the day. Right. So let's get into our local headlines, David.
Well, that's here in Murchison Falls, where stray elephants from Murchison Falls National Park have killed a 7-month pregnant woman and seriously injured a pupil of Aba Primary School in Oyam District. Over 30 elephants strayed from the park on Sunday night and terrorized villages in Kamdini and Aba sub-counties, attacking whoever they came across. The elephants invaded the home of one Moses Ogwok of Onen, a village, and killed his 23-year-old wife, Dorcas Awino. The LC3 chairman of Aba sub-county, Bosco Orenyi, says 4 elephants also strayed in his area and attacked the people of Aba Primary School. He said the elephants injured Daniel Orang, a 14-year-old pupil of Primary 5 class, in the mouth and knees, and he is undergoing treatment at Atapara Hospital, where he is admitted.
Right, moving on, in Buko District, police is investigating circumstances under which unidentified people stabbed a police officer at Alalam Police Post and took off with his gun and 30 rounds of ammunition. Now, Polly Namaye, the deputy police spokesperson, says Constable Walter Opio was attacked while taking tea at his house and was left for dead. Meanwhile, police in Jinja is holding 4 people for allegedly stealing a gun from security guard attached to Companion Security Services Limited. So that's it for the stories making headlines across the country and also at an international level. So we're getting into a Take Note segment. We're taking this short bumper. Don't change that dial.
Well, if you have just joined us, you have missed a few things, but you're still in time for our Take Note conversation this morning. And before we introduce to you who we have in the studio with us, as a parent, your life revolves around your children and their happiness, which is quite understandable. And you desire to give them the best possible things in life. You would do anything to make your children happy, isn't it?
Right, indeed. So as you try so much to make sure that you ensure that your children are happy, have you stopped to wonder what would happen if your child, in the unfortunate event that you actually die, what will happen to them, or when you actually get incapacitated? Now, a child education insurance plan is designed to address your child's future education needs, even in your absence. Now, according to a 2014 report by the Ministry of Education, about 8 out of 10 pupils, 79%, who enrolled for government's universal primary education dropped out of school due to lack of fees, despite the program being deemed free of church.
Many people are now looking for other ways of supporting the education of their children, as the cost of education is going up every single year. If your child is in P1 now, how much will it cost you to educate him or her for 7 years from now? What will be the source of his fees requirement? Unless you plan now, the cost in future may be prohibitive, and your child may be denied the type of education you have always dreamed about. As the school term draws to a close, many parents are already stressed about where to get the fees for the next term. So how does one identify the perfect child education insurance plan, and what should it offer?
So when should a parent consider taking up a child education insurance policy, and how does someone in the informal sector benefit from this policy? So today we're going to break that conversation down. Zero jargon, we promise you that, so that you can be able to understand the ins and outs of education policies, and telling that you can actually get this policy for your children regardless of what sector you are in. So in studios we are joined by Miss Florence Navachivi. She is the manager life pensions at ICA Lion. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So today, no jargon, Florence, no jargon. Okay, all right.
Florence, I'm not a parent, but I'm soon going to be a parent. We are praying about it very hard meanwhile. But as a parent, every single parent wants their child to have the best education. But the one thing that we never think about so closely is, what if something happened to me today? Or what if something happened to me and my wife today? Who will take care of our children? Our first thought is the family members will come to our rescue. You know, my workmates. How is my child going to suffer when Mala is, I'm here always smiling with Mara? How can she not come in and chip in with a thing? But in truth and honesty, we should plan for it. Where do you start as a parent?
Okay, it's very good you've started thinking about it even before having the children. I think it's the best time. Now, I liked your opening remarks. Why should your children suffer and Mala is here?
Yes.
That was...
She's always here smiling, telling people how she's friends.
Okay, she might want to help, but right now the circumstances are very different. The economic situation is very hard, and even her, she may be struggling on her own. Because if you look at that tuition, what we paid then, right now, even a nursery child, what I paid at the university cannot accommodate a child in nursery.
I remember I went to Savio. I think we were paying 250,000 per term. Yeah. That can't even get a child out of nursery.
Exactly. That's why you need to start planning early, and education of your children, unlike in our parents' days, it's your own responsibility. When you're not there, unfortunately, your children may not enjoy the same quality of education. That's why we have solutions for parents, young parents, middle-aged parents, to take care of your children during that time, because you can't know what will happen. But also, even if you're there, the good thing with an education plan, it relieves you of the financial burden. There's always a payout, unlike the non-life policies where if a risk doesn't happen, then there's nothing to claim. But for life policies, most of them, even if the insured event doesn't happen, there's a flow of income at that time, and you use that income to facilitate your child's education. Yeah.
The biggest problem with insurance plans, and you have seen that with, let it be car insurance, let it be life insurance, let it be house insurance, is people are always worried. Well, I put this insurance on the side for my child, but then nothing happens. And I'm still here, I'm capable, I've educated all my children and they're done with school, I'm still around. Where does this insurance go? I know I'm rushing this, but that's the first worry.
Okay, for most education policies, there are policies that we call endowment. They fall in the broad umbrella of endowment policies. For an endowment policy, it covers both a risk and there's a component of investment. That means that even if you've not died in the 10 years, there's a lump sum that will be available to you, and depending on the product that you've taken, there will be a bonus. Your policy can either participate in a bonus or it can be a guaranteed product. So that would mean at the end of the 10 years, even if you have not passed on, then you will have a lump sum that you can utilize to cater for your child's education.
Okay. Florence, what options are there, especially for someone who is saying that I've always looked at education policies as, you know, products for the elite, them that have gone to school. Let's break it down for them. What's the entry point for someone in the informal sector?
Okay. Of course, it's true that there's a misconception, because you'll find even like insurance literature is in English, so people may not really understand. But insurance is for everyone. And also, when you look at our sales team, they have good knowledge of a number of languages. So they're able, we actually have clients who do not know English. The other time I was talking to clients from Kasese, and they don't know English, but they bought policies with us. And when I explained to them, they were able to understand. So insurance is for everyone. We really do break it down for even the person in the informal sector. It's not only for the person in the formal sector. Even the person in the informal sector has dreams of their child being someone. I may be down in Chikubo, but I don't want my child to come to Chikubo. I want them to be a doctor, to be a lawyer. So I have to make plans for them. And even that person, they face a risk, because if they die early, those neighbors in the shops are not going to look after the child. The person has to, the children will be left to suffer, and they may even have to drop out of school. So everyone has to take it upon themselves to plan. It's called financial planning, and the earlier you do it, the better. Take us through the most affordable pretty much package in terms of an education policy that is available for them that are in that sector, them that feel like there's always been this misconception that, you know, this policy is expensive, and we'll get, of course, into the other misconceptions. But tell us, what's the entry point and what package, what's the go-to package for someone who's watching us today? Okay, since I work for one of the players in the market, I'll definitely talk about our product. Yes. So our product is affordable. For as low as 100,000 every month, you can be able to secure a very decent education for your child. Now, if you look at 100,000 in terms of what you can do with it in a month, so many things. Before you know it, even if you've not put that money aside, you'll spend it. You'll go out, you'll buy tomatoes, you'll do whatever, but you'll spend it. And yet, if you set it aside, if you have in place a method of payment where you don't even have to remember, like if you signed a direct debit, for example, you'll never remember that money, and yet you have a policy running. So in the event of a misfortune, then the insurance company is able to come through for you. If you look at how 100,000 can fly in a month, you'll even ask yourself what you did with it, and yet you can buy an insurance policy. We actually have clients who cannot believe, we have clients who bought policies some time back, and right now they're maturing, and they can't believe that actually they paid premiums for 10 years, and they are getting insurance actually pays, they're getting their lump sums. So if I can afford 100,000 per month, what's the duration of time that I should be paying these premiums before my policy matures? Okay, now our education plan is very flexible. So we have premium payment terms as low as 5 years. So you choose, and also depending on how old your child is. So we have what we call the premium payment term, and then the term when the policy will start to pay out. So you can choose as low as 5 years to start to pay your premiums, and then the policy starts paying out after the 5 years. For the next, say, 3 years or 7, you choose all those parameters at inception of the policy. So if I choose the maturity point for me as 5 years, me paying 100K every single month for 5 years, and you get to that maturity point, do I stop then? Yes. Now, the plan we have at the moment, once you choose a period when you pay premiums, once you paid premiums for that period, you stop. Then the policy now starts paying tuition or school fees for your child. For how long? For the period you selected still. So if you were targeting maybe when your child is starting P1 and you wanted the policy to pay for 7 years, the policy will pay all through primary school. How much? Now, now as she gets to how much, do I get to pick the school where my child goes, or because let's be honest, the fees vary here, the tuition varies. If I take my child, let's say, to Kampala Parents, the tuition is there. It's quite different from the primary school in my neighborhood. So does it vary on where my child goes to school, or it doesn't matter? Okay, what happens when you come to our offices, we do a needs assessment. Your needs may be different from Mala's needs. So we'll ask you, where would you wish your child to go for primary? You tell us maybe Kampala Parents or Kaboja. So how much is school fees there right now? And when will your child go there? So even at the time your child will go there, school fees may have gone up a bit. So we use that information to now give you a quotation and estimate for you how much you should pay, and you'll also know that at that point the policy will be paying out this amount of money every term. You will know that in advance. Yeah. Okay. Now, for such an incident where Mala wakes up in the morning and decides, I want to start a plan for my child,
planning, let's say, for her next child, not yet born. And 5 years down the road, this child is about to start school. But unfortunately, this child is not there anymore. What happens to the plan?
Okay, that's a very hard situation. That's what we'd call a contract being frustrated.
Yes.
Of course, at that point, as a company, we would make a consideration and see what we can do for her. Most likely, we would just refund her premiums because she had taken the policy for her child, but the child is no longer there. So it's such a difficult thing, but either she can, if she has another child, she can replace the child and the plan benefits this other child. If she doesn't have any children at all, then as a company you can make a consideration and maybe return her premiums.
You use maybe, which is not very good when
because it's case by case. Like now, I don't know if there will be other children in the picture. Okay. If there are other children who have no policies, we could ask her to utilize this policy for other children. Yes. If they are not there, then that's when now we'll make a decision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Florence, I want us to continue with the plan that we started because someone is following. So I can afford 100K premiums per month. I choose a maturity period of 5 years. So I pay off for 5 years. Okay. Then we get to 5 years where the policy has matured, and so the policy starts paying. For how long will it pay, for example, for that 5-year maturity plan?
Okay, so for how long it will pay, we still determine that with you at inception. So when we're doing a needs assessment, we ask you, what are you targeting? Are you targeting primary education, secondary education? If it's primary, we'll advise you that your policy pays for 7 years. You set that term because it also affects the premium rates that we use. If you're targeting secondary, our secondary education here is 6 years. So we'll advise you that let's have this policy payout for 6 years. You'll know it at inception. It's not unknown. We don't determine it at that point when your policy matures. You'll know it and it will be in the policy document.
So if it's paying out for 6 years, 7 years, for example, and I only took the policy that matures at 5 years, what are the implications there?
Okay, now if you want to target, say, 6 years or even 3 years at the university, we guide you as you're taking the policy. The minimum term for paying premium is 5 years, but it can go upwards.
Okay.
So we would advise you that since your child stays in nursery and you're targeting, say, university, take a longer term because then you'll have even a bigger payout since you paid premium for longer.
So the longer the maturity period, the longer it will be for the payout period?
Yes, definitely, because then you have more time to pay premiums.
All right.
And also it depends on the premiums you pay. You asked me a question earlier about how much and all that. You see, for life is very sensitive because we have the rates we use are actuarially determined. So we base on so many factors. Even if you and David were paying the same premium, you may not have the same payout because your other features are all totally different. We do risk assessment on each life per individual.
Let's take a basic example. So my child, I took a policy, matured at 5 years, and my plan was to take my child, for example, to campus for another 5 years. Maybe they're taking, a course in medicine.
Okay.
So how long will it be? Like, for example, so you've told me, so the period of my plan to mature has to tally with the period of the payout, but how much ideally? Based on experience and of course the payouts that you've made, what's the range? Because I'm sure someone watching us today wants to know what's the range so they can make their cost benefit analysis or see if there's value for money for sure.
Okay, like I mentioned earlier, before we even compute for you what is payable, we ask you for a lot of information which I don't have right now. So if you look at our application form, even for any other life company, it's very detailed. We'll ask you information about your personal health, about your family, about your finances. Sometimes we even send you for medical tests based on how much sum assured we are going to pay out. So it's not practical for me to give you an amount that someone will actually get at that time.
All right.
Yeah.
So you have different plans. I could wake up in the morning and decide, you know what, I am earning money right now.
Yeah.
And there's a plan that I'm not sure I may be earning the same money next year. So this year alone, I have my 2 children. I want to open up a plan for them. And I am going to give you 1 million shillings every single month for these children. And I want, in this year, to make sure that by the end of it, my children's school is covered to university. Is that possible?
Okay, the way we design life plans are long term. So we don't have plans where you pay for 1 year and you've paid everything. Ideally, that would mean then we've sold you a wrong product. For life plans, you pay over a long period of time, because when you look at the nature of risk that we are covering, we don't know when it will happen. But also, to make it affordable for a customer, we kind of break premiums down into monthly installments. When you look at the non-life insurance, customers actually pay upfront annually. But for life policies, because they are long-term, we break it down and a customer is able to pay. As you earn, you keep paying. Now, if you have such a deal where you're earning a lot of money right now, but you're not sure, we would advise you to tone down a bit, because you may not be able to sustain your policy. And when you don't sustain it, then you may actually miss out on the benefits, because if you're not paying premiums, then you're not covered. So we have those scenarios where someone has just hit a deal and then they want to pay so much premium, but they can't sustain it 3 years down the road. When we are doing a needs assessment, we'll discourage you from that. We want you to be able to keep your policy in force over a long period of time. Because for life policies, like I said, minimum is 5 years. Are you going to be able to pay the premium for 5 years at 1 million? If you're not going to be able to, then we'll now ask you, please pay lower that you can actually maintain.
You see that's my exact argument. I may not be able to pay this 1 million over 5 years, but I am able to pay this 2 million over the next year. So why you asking me to pay longer, yet I won't be able to pay that, yet I am sure I'll be able to pay for the next year or two and give you that money?
Okay, so even if you pay upfront on your policy, the benefits don't start being paid out immediately. So if you've taken a 5-year plan and you pay all the premium in 2 years, we don't start paying out the benefits immediately.
Until
we
the 5
wait
years.
for the 5 years, yes, and then we start paying out the benefits.
All right. Let's, life is tricky and quite unpredictable. So for example, if I've taken the 5-year plan, all right, and then something unfortunate happens to me at the 3rd year, and I'm unable to consistently pay out my premiums, what happens to the money that I would have contributed for the 3 years?
Okay, now, of course, it will depend on the reason why you're not able to pay out your premium continuously. So we'll sit with you and discuss with you options. The options that we have, even for a customer, maybe you've lost your job or something has happened and you're unable to continue with your policy. So we can give you an option to redate your policy. So we give you a payment break and we push your policy dates forward. So we'll push the commencement date forward, say by 1 year, and the maturity by 1 year, to enable you now recover and come back to pay premiums.
0 penalties?
Yes. Once you've approached us and told us about your issue, then we're able to have that formalized and we push your policy forward. We call that redating, so that now you're able to come back and continue paying your policies. If your premiums, if your policy has acquired a value and you really cannot continue, then we can advise you to terminate it. Of course, you'll make a financial loss, but you can surrender the policy. We call it surrendering. So you terminate it and we give you a payout, but you'll make a financial loss.
Of what percentage?
It's not of a percentage, but we determine it at that point when you want to cancel. But okay, we strongly discourage. Then we have some products that actually do give loans. So if you're really stranded, we can actually advise you to just take a loan and then you can come back.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive.
Interesting. At least we've learned quite a bit, and thank you so much for being very simplistic today. Zero jargon. You've tried so hard. I know it's easy to explain these things without using the jargon. Thank you so much, Florence. Before we let you go, what other thing do you want the viewer to take home today?
Okay, what I want the viewer to take home, I just hope that we've tried to demystify what insurance is about. It's not for the educated, it's for everyone. It forms part of wise financial planning. You just never know what will happen, and society will not take care of your children in the future, unfortunately. Yeah, but with plans like insurance, we have plans where we even pay directly to the school, so your child can be secured with their education.
All right.
This is very bad news this morning. I've always believed that Mala would help me out, but now knowing that she won't is very bad news. But thank you very much for giving me assurance that now I need to look away from her and come up with a plan for my children. You're not my friend.
Sort out your issues.
Anyway, right about now we're going all the way to Makerere, around Makerere. That is where Steve B is, and he's going to be updating us on the traffic in that area to see hear how the traffic is going for the people who are headed to the office, for those that are headed back home. It is time for us to update you on how the roads are around Makerere. So right about now, let's link up to Stephen Mbide, who is out on the road. Stephen, good morning. How is the situation in Makerere?
Thank you, David. Good morning to you once again. I'm coming to you live from the intersection of the connection point of Makerere Road and the Saaprokagwa Road, this side as you drive from Nankulabye or as you drive from Waise side. And this is the traffic and travel update for you who is coming from either the northern bypass, or if you know you're coming from the other side of Kawempe or Waise. Joining this Saaprokagwa Road, you have to know that there is a long stretch of traffic coming from the other side of MBI as you drive a few meters from the roundabout of Waise. As you connect towards this point of Nankulabye, as you're coming from Nankulabye or joining Odi Kampala, as well as joining Makerere Road, this is where you're going to be delayed longer just because of this bumper-to-bumper traffic jam that is almost going to take you almost 20 or to 35 minutes of your waiting time before you connect towards the Odi Kampala side. And if you know you're coming from Nankulabye, at least for you, a less of congestion there, you'll be losing just 5 minutes between the Kampala Apostolic Church and this traffic lights of the intersection of Saaprokagwa Road and Makerere Road. But if you know you're coming from Odi Kampala or Bukesa side, joining this section, also just know that there is less of congestion. Except for you heading towards the Wandegeya, that is the other side of Makerere Road. From this point here, it's a bumper-to-bumper congestion heading towards the traffic lights of Wandegeya, as well as coming from Odi Kampala using Gaddafi Road. There, as you drive towards the traffic lights of Gaddafi Road and Makerere Road, there is where you'll be losing those 10 to 15 minutes before you connect towards the Wandegeya traffic lights. But coming from Wandegeya using the Makerere Road,